Welcome, everyone. My name is Christian Talbot. I am the president of the Middle States Association, and I am thrilled to be joined today by Ren Parikh, who is the founder of Ideal Institute of Technology in New Jersey. And I will introduce him a little bit more in just a moment. But first, this is the first in a series of interviews that we're doing with people who are leading change in schools. And I'm really excited for you to learn some lessons about change leadership from a fellow Middle States member, and also to learn about a really interesting and frankly, not just innovative, but unique business model in the post-secondary and higher ed space. And finally, to learn a little bit more about one of the forces at play that we think a lot about here at Middle States, and that is the role of AI in education. So I want to say just a couple of words about Ren Parikh. He is, as I said, the founder of the Ideal Institute of Technology in New Jersey. He is an immigrant from India, and you're going to hear a little bit more about that story in just a moment. And most importantly to me and to Middle States, he is someone I consider to be a visionary and an incredible strategist, and has spotted real problems and gaps in the marketplace, and is doing, as I said, innovative and in some cases unique things to solve those problems on behalf of students, which is just deeply important to all of us at Middle States. So Ren, welcome. Thank you for being here. And I'm excited to hear entirely about your story.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So Ren, can you give us the background on how you came from India to the United States? And then we'll talk a little bit about the founding of IITNJ.
Sure. So I still remember the day, August 13, 2000. I was 22-year-old, undocumented, and couldn't speak English. And I came straight from India to Atlantic City, New Jersey, with the hopes and dreams that I can break the cycle of poverty. Because in India, I grew up in a very lower middle class family. I started working when I was in the 5th grade. You know how on a street corner here you see somebody selling a water bottle? That's what I used to do in India while I was going to the school. And the day I landed, my dad used to make $100 equivalent rupees in India. So when you talk about poverty, I don't see any poor in America compared to where I come from.
So what brought you here? Why did you decide to make the leap from India to the United States?
So I had quite a few friends who migrated to US when we were in a school. And they always talk about how many opportunities are here. And I'm always an entrepreneurial mindset kid. And I started my first business when I was in my high school. I started actually a computer training center in India in the school that I was in. And those days was DOS, Verstar, Lotus. I don't know, the people from those era would probably remember. Windows wasn't invented. My first computer had a 5.2 floppy disk with the capacity of 4 megabyte storage. So I used to teach computers, but in those days in my state was a challenge that everybody didn't speak English, right? So I used to translate all the English books, PC Tech magazine, Computer Today magazine, and those articles in Indian language, Gujarati, and I was publishing and teaching. And I originally started doing that for myself to learn. So I would get somebody who has an English proficiency and say, "Can you translate this book for me?" And then I would read it, and then I started teaching, and I was a publisher. So when my friend saw what I was doing, and he goes like, "Ren, you're wasting your time here. You come to America, and you can progress and do good. But immigration policy is different." I had no clue. So we worked through some human trafficker, paid 1.1 million Indian rupees.
Wow.
And I was paying 36% a year interest on it because my dad had no financial capacity. He never seen that much money together those days. I never seen it. So we paid somebody that much, borrowed from a few friends, and I came with the hope that my life will be changed.
Wow. Those are details that even I have not heard yet, although I've heard your story a couple of times. Um, that's incredible. So you made your way to the United States through a human trafficker, paying extortionary interest rates. And when you arrived here, what kinds of work did you take on at first?
So, second day of my arrival, somebody referred me to Atlantic City Boardwalk, where there was an Ocean One Mall right behind Caesar's Casino, and my first job was $3 an hour in a store where I have to do everything from open to close. Those days, the local transportation in Atlantic City called Jitney was a 50 cents for one-way trip, and I couldn't afford, so I used to walk 4 or 5 miles to just get to work. Work $3 an hour, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I used to run 3 stores, from unpacking, cleaning, boxing to sales, everything the store owner needs. But in a 1 year, I was able to learn QuickBook. So from just a cleaning person or a day laborer to I become a store manager. And I learned everything about Atlantic City gift article business, souvenir business. So it was an exciting learning journey for me.
So you've used this word learn a few times already in just the couple of minutes we've been talking, and it sounds like that is fundamental to your entrepreneurial mindset. How do you think about how do you define entrepreneurship? What is it? What has it meant to you?
So I usually, when I teach my in ideals entrepreneurship class, I always talk about that anybody who wanted to go towards betterment of their life, or another person who's around their life, they are all entrepreneurs. Every single mindset who's finding a solution, not just talking about a problem, they are all entrepreneurs. When you learn how to monetize that process, you become a true entrepreneur or a business owner. So I uh, am in a process of teaching entrepreneurship as a trade. A lot of people, like where I come from, in state of Gujarat in India, everybody's entrepreneur because we are a 1.5 billion people country. So if you don't be innovative and entrepreneur, you left behind. So we teach entrepreneurship skill set as a trade.
That's really interesting. So it's not merely spotting a problem in the marketplace, it's finding a solution and then, as you said, monetizing that solution. And I think we're going to come back around to this when we talk a little bit about the model that you've created at IIT. But to finish your immigrant story and your coming to America story, how did you move from jobs at Atlantic City on the boardwalk, in the mall, and the casinos? How did you move from those jobs to creating IIT?
So in 9 months of working in Atlantic City Boardwalk, I found my wife. She's Atlantic City High School graduate, Atlantic Cape Community graduate, and she was trying to tell me, you want to do something in America, you have to be legal. Let me find somebody that you can be married and become a citizen. And I'm like, I like you. You want to get married? And she said yes, and that's how I became legal in the U.S. I got my work permit, my permanent residency, and eventually citizenship. As soon as I got my work authorization, I took a first job at Wild Wild West Casino as a security officer, because by then 9/11 had happened and no IT jobs was out there, recession was there, and my wife was going through school for occupational therapy, and cost of that education was $50,000 a year, and with the $3 an hour job, it's not possible to pay that type of. And I committed that I don't want to take a loan. I don't want her to take a loan. So I took a job in Atlantic City Casino. At one point, I worked almost 112 hours a week for almost a year. So I did 2 jobs, and both jobs I did overtime. So interestingly, and this is a funny story for a lot of folks who don't know immigrants' lifestyle, right? So we had an early out list on our casino and an overtime list that you go in and you say you want to get early out and you want to get overtime. So I had a friend of mine. She was mentor. She was teaching me how to be a cashier and all that. And I took a cashier's job. She put every time her name on an overtime early out list, and I would put overtime list. And every Friday, when we get paid, she would have a conversation. I'm $50 short. I'm $100 short. And I'm like, we're getting paid today. How are you short? She says, oh, I have a more bill. And I'm like, why you give up the days? And she goes like, oh, if I take all the days, then I would lose my benefit. I went on a research spree. I'm like, what kind of a benefit I'm missing? Because this FICA guy was taking half of my paycheck because I worked two jobs, and one paycheck was going to FICA. So I called Social Security Administration and says, take my name off. I don't want FICA. But it was an interesting journey and a learning journey on how the American system works. So I learned how to speak English by working in a casino from cashier supervisor, cashier shift manager, slot attendant, slot tech, dealer, poker dealer, black. Every job. I always say jokingly that I got everything in my life, including gambling problem, through Atlantic City. So I did all the jobs that casino had to offer, but heart wasn't there. So when my wife got a full-time job as a therapist, and I was going through a lot of gambling problem issues, I decided that it's time for me to move on from Atlantic City, and I moved to North Jersey, tried to went back into the IT, did a jewelry show, entrepreneur in my heart and a hobby for traveling directed me to, there is a jewelry show that happens throughout the country. So I did that for a year and a half. Every single convention center that is out there in America, big size, I've been there and did the jewelry show for that company. And that's how I fulfilled my traveling hobby, and I wanted to see the America. So I actually went everywhere. I would go Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I would do show. Sunday, I come back and work. So did that and started back to the IT consulting, where I would train folks. I had a few trainers in India because my background was IT and a computer institute I used to run. So I got a couple trainers and I was training people and placing them in IT. So 2009, 10, 11, 12, I did all that. And when 2014, 15, casino started closing, a lot of fans and family. I have a few property. I know around 5,000 Indian family in the area in Atlantic County. So they all say, Ren, you're in IT, do something. Come back to Atlantic County and help us. So I went back in 2015 and I did the training for 16 people. Almost everyone got over $100,000 job in IT. And I'm like, wow, I can do the school here. So I started searching and did the application to be a private vocational school. And that's how Ideal Institute of Technology started.
So you said something really interesting, and I know you were joking or half joking, but you picked up everything from the casinos, including gambling problems. But IIT, the model of IIT is almost like the opposite of having a gambling problem. What you're doing is you're completely eliminating the financial risk for the students. And so maybe you can just share with the people who will watch this, what is the business model of IIT, because it is extremely unusual.
So the way I said that we went through very hard work and hard time when my wife was going to school. And it was beyond my understanding that why education is this much costly. And the way I say is that Ideal started as an IT school. And I'm like, I'm going to get people $100,000 job. Placement rate is very good, so I should have a line. But every time student comes to the Ideal, they says, you provide funding, you provide funding. And I was wondering, I'm like, what is this funding? Because nobody want to pay to go to school. in America, everybody's thinking about somebody needs to pay for this education. And I didn't know, so I got some wise person advised that, okay, you can apply for a grant. And I got this out of school youth grant, and I learned how many people can't read and write and have a learning disability, or don't have a high school diploma, or have a high school diploma and don't have any skill set. So I took a philosophy of a concept where everybody heard the term education is your fundamental right. What I learned is if you come from a background like mine, or you are coming from any labeled community, that means you're public assistant dependent, justice involved, low income, some barrier, then getting education is your job. But when you go to job, you should get paid. So we took that philosophy in Ideal, and I can probably say 8 years later in my journey with Ideal is we're the first school, career college in America that pays students to come to school. Because coming to Ideal is not you coming to school, but you're coming to job. So we took the philosophy of a work-based learning from first year of our journey. So everything we do at Ideal, our business model is that we do what we teach. That means we started with our first social enterprise. Now we have a 9 social enterprise. But at Ideal, any students come to Ideal, they don't come to learn, they come to work. Learning is a part of their job. So that's our very unique model. And now we're bringing that to higher ed as well.
Yesterday at the ceremony to announce the partnership between IIT and Centenary University, also here in New Jersey, I got to sit next to 2 students. Well, actually, I think it's one current student, maybe one prospective student, and one of them talked about how he got his GED and he was paid for that. He graduated, he was paid for that, and they were just both still in a state of disbelief that learning is part of the job, but that they can also learn what they need to do as a job and be paid the entire time, because everything in American culture essentially reverses that dynamic. And it's tell me if this resonates for you, but it seems to me that when we trace the kind of the DNA of IIT, as you did going back to your wife's master's degree program, which was so expensive and really onerous probably for most people, what I heard you say was you asked this question: why is education so costly? And so I'm wondering if it resonates for you that part of your entrepreneurial mindset and change making mindset is not accepting the status quo and not accepting the way that things are typically done simply because that's how they're done, and that you seem to have a kind of desire to understand at a deeper layer why something is going on.
Yeah, and so I not only only my wife's experience, I have probably 15, 20 very close friends in America. They're still paying student loan debt, and the concept of me graduating with the debt, I'm supposed to be graduating with the wealth. But then we just use a nice word that, oh, you're graduating with the wealth of knowledge. But that knowledge comes with $100,000 debt. And I'm just starting my life. Like when youngsters, 22-year-old, 23-year-old college graduate or vocational graduate comes in, they have a whole life ahead of that, a lot more expense ahead of them. How can we bury them with their life start with the debt? So I saw that as the biggest problem. And how I was always wondering, how do I address that as a solution? How do I address and find a solution? And other side of this problem is there are a lot of employers or a lot of small business need a skilled worker. They have a problem of finding a skilled worker, and they are struggling. And I'm like, okay, why not we just marry this problem and find a solution where we can not only don't need to fundraise but work raise. So we create that philosophy that we do find work for our students while they are in the school, and that model encourage students for a participation, attendance. I never have issues with anybody drop out unless they have a family situation or some emergency because they're coming to work. In today's America, nobody can afford to continue education journey for a year or a 4 year without figuring out how they're going to pay their bills. And that's where the work-based learning journey with Ideal is becoming a more viable solution.
So this is another feature of IIT that I think is really fascinating for people to think about, is the fact that not only are you paying students to attend rather than asking them to pay you, but you don't fundraise, you work raise. You don't take, you said it yesterday, you don't take anything for free, you don't give anything for free.
Correct. So when we started our school, right, and I was asking all the other schools and other community organizations that I wanted to gather people, I want to invite people. What should I do? I said, oh, you can give away free computer, advertise that, give away free breakfast. And I'm like, free is not in my DNA. I don't want anything for free, and I don't want to give anything for free, because if somebody come with the wrong intention to my door, then they're here for a free product, not for education, not for learning. Then it's a wrong customer. I don't want it. So when I learned a nonprofit world of America, everybody was asking who's funding, and I yesterday I said jokingly my wife is funding everything, but truly we create our own funding by asking for work. And I'll give you an example. If I come to any big corporation or organization and says I need a donation to do a very good classroom project, or I wanted to provide, or I wanted to buy a projector, or like lot of schools does that, and I pick up a very unique learning because my kids go to Catholic high school from pre-K to now this year my twins are graduating from high school, and they used to come home with the booklet. Everything in that book raised my diabetes, candy, chocolate, and that's a fundraising booklet. And they go in a neighborhood, make faces, and collect money. And school only get 10, 15, 20% of their sales because everything else goes to the company. I went to my kids' high school and I said, look, we do work raise. You have any 10, 15 kids who's interested in a cell phone repair? Send out this flyer to all the parents who have a broken phone at home. They can bring it back after school. I'll teach this 10 high schoolers, and they'll do screen replacement. And we've raised $20,000 in 1 week. That's how many phones we fixed. And those kids now have they are Apple certified tech, and they can get those certification, a college credit. So working is and earning at the same time, learning and earning at the same time is a philosophy.
I think the last thing, Ren, I want to ask you about before we start to talk about the partnership with Centenary University is, you mentioned that you spoke to a lot of other people in the space when you were getting started. What do you think it is that prevents a school leader of, not necessarily a competitor, but just another school in your space? What prevents them from seeing or understanding your model of work-based learning?
So innovation is scary. Trying a new thing is difficult. And initially, when I started having this conversation, that I usually have a tagline called "Work you provide changes life," and I tell this to everybody who provides us a work. So I share with a lot of high schools and a lot of private schools, like private vocational schools, that finding an employer connection is very hard. A lot of time, employer need experienced students. A lot of time, they wanted to get a free labor. So say, send us a free intern. I never send any of the students for a free intern. So all the school owners, right, that I have a conversation with, I tell them that you have to start the way I did it with the social enterprises. So I created a student-run enterprise. And now, like giving an example, we teach IT. We have an IT company that provides services. We have a web development company because we teach web development. We have a construction company because we do construction. Now, 3 years later, our construction company is about to become a public work contractor. And it's a revenue generating venture. And our students, so we don't have to go to other employer while they are in our school. Our student run enterprises generates the revenue more than enough that we can afford to pay a good stipend to our student, which is above minimum wage. Same way we teach robotics and engineering. We have a robot lab where we have a restaurant serving robot and a robotic arms, 3D printing. So and film and music production. Same way we teach even entrepreneurship. We have our own start your own food truck program, and we have our school's food truck, and we graduated 3 students with their own food truck. So school owners or any other school, they wanted to try, they can try with the one social enterprise where they, and trust me, I rather go to the community member and ask for work than ask for donation. It works. It's just somebody have to take that initiative and try. And I'm not shy of trying.
So two follow-up questions. One is, you said innovation is scary. You said you're not shy. What advice would you have for a school leader who maybe recognizes the insight that you've got, sees the wisdom, but is afraid?
I'm here. I teach my kids sharing is caring. What works for me, I'm willing to share best practices with anybody. That's why I'm loving Middle States' approach on helping the schools to grow together. So anyone wants to experiment, come and see what we're doing. I'm willing to share how I started and not only just talk, but actually give know-how. And you guys or any of our membership can utilize our social enterprise to start with also. So pick a one training that can generate the revenue. So I always jokingly say this, that somebody comes to me and say, Ren, I have a business idea. First thing I ask, can I teach? Can my student make money? I don't want to teach anything where students cannot generate the revenue and a career. So if school is offering that, then it's just sitting down and experimenting one by just surveying the advisory board members, parents, students, and just have a conversation that what do you guys think? We're trying to experiment this and get the survey. And I learned that from a middle state application. We had a lot of surveys that we had to do, and I love that, and we kept that practice going. So any new social enterprise that we're launching, we survey in our community and say, what do you guys think? So that's what I would say, that put the thoughts together on how we can become a school that pays students to come to school. And how do we fund? We fund by working.
Yeah, the second thing, it's not so much a question, although I'll be curious to get your reaction to it. It's more a thought that I've had. The more I've thought about your business model, I think sometimes people confuse business model with financial model, and they assume that it's just about how many dollars are coming in and how many are going out. But for me, the business model is more about how does the revenue connect with the creation of value. And what I think is really interesting, and tell me if you see it the same way, about IIT is that you're creating value for both sides of the equation. You're creating value for the community that needs the work done, and you're creating value for the student who needs the work-based learning. That you've said that already, so that's clearly part of the value equation. But you are a school, and so what I find even more interesting is that you've figured out that work-based learning is the best kind of learning. It's not just that it's good and effective in terms of bringing revenue in and being able to pay people to come to your school, but you've also figured out that people learn best when they apply their learning to real situations. And so, for example, you don't spend much time anyway, teaching entrepreneurship theory. You teach students to create a business
Absolutely.
and to execute it.
So I usually say the work-based learning, CTE WBL, is a new buzzword. In America, every few years we get the buzzword. STEM was the buzzword, STEAM was the buzzword. Now CTE WBL is the reason that I say buzzword, because it comes with a lot of dollar amount. The federal government pumps a lot of grants attached to this word. But I believe that learning should be working when you're talking about a career or a vocational school or any kind of education. If you are educating for a philosophy or you're educating for something spiritual, it's different. But in our school or type of our school, people go to get the skill. Now, if you just, I usually use this example, you cannot learn swimming, reading the book and watching video. You have to jump in the water. Don't try this online swimming classes and jump in the ocean. You'll die. So, so same way, when you're teaching students, says, okay, this, and then benefit for the employer, right? That a lot of my students, they get placed because they work on the employer's project. An employer goes like, oh, I like these students. And I'm like, feel free to hire. They are not married to my social enterprise. They are here because they wanted to get a work-based learning, but we're preparing them for you. So our students transition a lot of time goes to the businesses. They are giving us work. They see their work and it goes like, okay, I like these students. Can I hire him? And I'm like, yeah. And I don't have to work too hard to do the placement.
Well, that's a good transition to the partnership with Centenary University and the way in which you're really expanding access and making affordable an education that I think is transforming the lives of students. And what I mean by that, because that could just be sort of a hand wavy thing to say or an empty phrase, but the population that you're working with is often, from what you said earlier, a labeled community. Sometimes formerly incarcerated, lower income, ethnically or socially marginalized. And these are the folks who tend to have fewer options available to them to begin with, and also maybe taking on more debt that they can't pay off, and sometimes not graduate with a credential that is useful to them in the marketplace. So when I say transforming lives, I mean that in a very specific and concrete way. How did you have the idea to connect your school, which is a post-secondary but non-degree granting institution, with a degree granting institution like Centenary?
So the way I say is I have a twins. They are graduating from high school. We started coaching them from 9th grade. Which major you wanted to specialize in? We're talking about doctorate degree, right? From 9th grade. Says where you're going to specialize, what you're going to do. And then on another side, we are a vocational school. And in America, last 2-3 years, a lot of people singing these songs. The college is not for everybody. College is not for everybody. And I always feel this, and I said that yesterday in our event, that if you tell a 3-year-old walking is not for everybody, walking is for not, what kind of a psychological impact you're making on that mind? They might not try walking. So I always feel that way, that vocational school is a feeding program and a pathway for all those students who feel that they are not college ready because life has a lot of challenges and they wanted to address that now. But college education, meaningful college education, let me say it that way, right? Because it's not just a $200,000 debt and having a arts degree and no career attached. So meaningful college education is needed for somebody to elevate from certain space. And I give you as an example, and I get criticized sometimes. I say, in America, it's very easy to become a doctor compared to becoming a licensed electrician or a licensed plumber. So a lot of people ask me, how can you make a statement like that? And I'm like, you have to look at the dedication, background, support system for the person who's going for doctorate, becoming a medical doctor, right? They have a support system. They have a family support. They have an intellect, a whole universe around them supporting them to become a doctor. Now you're talking about somebody becoming an electrician. There is no school exists that can guarantee you that you're going to be a licensed electrician, because you have to have a 4-year, 5-year apprenticeship program, a work-based learning. Trades don't provide that. Now somebody who's working as a day laborer, is close to impossible for them to get an educational dedication to pass that certification exams also. So for saying sake, we're saying that go into the trade and we don't provide actual solution. If college is not for everybody, then it's a college's responsibility to add those components so they can be for everybody. At least give opportunity to students that they can try without any debt. Because right now you try, you already stuck 30,000 in debt. So I say, if we make college accessible, affordable, achievable, then everybody can try it. And whenever they're ready, they can pursue. It's a higher ed. You don't have to start after 12th grade. You can start after 3 years of working and go back to it. But that option should be available. So when I share this thoughts with Dr. Dale Cladwell from President of Centenary University, and he is outside the box thinker just like me. And we had quite a few brainstorming conversation in terms of how we can bring those missing links between trade and higher ed. Because for both community, it's like some kind of a invisible barrier that they don't talk to each other. They don't collaborate with each other. Trade goes for trade, and then we're promoting, oh, college is not for you. And college is going, oh, we're higher ed. So we're creating this unique pilot where our students going to be able to earn college credits, and they have an ability to pursue a full degree whenever they are ready. So it's an interesting pilot that we're doing. And in that process, Centenary University is becoming the first university that will pay students to come to university. Because all the students in our pilot program at Centenary University and Ideal program, they will participate in work-based learning.
Yeah, and earlier I said this isn't just innovative. As far as I know, it's unique. I can't think of another institution or partnership of institutions that in higher ed that is paying students to participate in their programs, and it's really extraordinary. I want to go a little deeper on something that you've said in a few different ways in this conversation, and then you just referenced Dr. Caldwell from Centenary University, and I had the opportunity to hear him yesterday. Both of you come at the question of education and the value of an education from what I would describe as the perspective of mission. Now, you've described it as social innovation, social entrepreneurship, social enterprise, social impact. Yesterday, Dr. Caldwell talked about his father's relationship with Martin Luther King Jr. and the civil rights movement. And so part of his perspective is social justice. Whatever label we give it, it seems that both of you are motivated by a much deeper sense of purpose as opposed to sort of solving a math problem. Is that a fair statement? And if so, is that part of why this partnership emerged?
So absolutely. So if I go deeper in why we do what we do, right? So when somebody comes from a background like me, or some of our students that we serve, right? There is no light after the tunnel. In America, I was just Googling the statistics. Last 3 years, America spent $5 trillion on a social welfare, right? So that includes food stamps, the housing subsidies, all welfare programs, and all those. 3 trillion in 5 years, and that is the work of we putting a band-aid. We're not solving the problem, we're temporarily fixing it. The only way to attack poverty, social barrier is through sustainable solution, and that cannot be without education, employment, or entrepreneurship. And until and unless we do that, we have to create a social net of services for those who are interested in committing. But first, we have to fix the problem of very expensive product, which is education today in America, right? We have to make it affordable. So I'm going to find a solution, and I'm not going to make it affordable. I'm going to make it free and income generating. And our interest is to provide that opportunity with the Centenary and Ideals partnership is to anyone who says that I wanted to break the cycle, I want to get out of the poverty, I want to do something with my life. Then we wanted to provide that meaningful education that pays them and make them believe that this is possible.
So say a little bit more. This is an interesting triad. The solution, the sustainable solution, is education, employment, and entrepreneurship. I can see how education and employment are part of the solution. I can guess how entrepreneurship is part of the solution, but just say a little bit more about why entrepreneurship is integral to this as a sustainable solution.
So entrepreneurship in my triage has two components. Entrepreneurship for those entrepreneurs who are successful, pass the baton to the next generation and guide them and mentor them. And those students who are, particularly you're in a trade, right? Then 70-80% of the trade students, whether you are in a construction side, manufacturing side, they are entrepreneurs because they are self-employed entrepreneurs. So not only like if I'm working as a handyman and then I don't learn how to do the billing, how to do the promotion, then how I'm going to survive or go to the next level. So the both sides of the aisle, and instead of just talking about entrepreneurship, teaching entrepreneurship by doing it. That's the fun part for me, and that's a key success reason that we graduate students with their business. I usually say this in America: without a good credit and a collateral, you cannot get $100 loan. But when you go to school tag the price as per the program, and no question asked, no collateral asked, and you can get a loan without a surety how you're going to pay for it. So we take that model and says we're going to invest in our own students and graduate them. Running their business is their entrepreneurship class. So entrepreneurship is a key component, but entrepreneurship is not for everybody. But you still learn that, then you have an employment route.
Yeah. And I will bring it back to the conversation about business model. I think part of the value that is encoded in your model is that you don't take anything for free, you don't give anything for free. And by having students perform the work, you're actually increasing their sense of self-efficacy. You're increasing their belief in themselves to be effective in the world. And entrepreneurship is a great model for that because you can spot problems and solve them, and you don't rely on other parts of the system to solve your problems for you when you can do them for yourselves. And there's enormous value in empowering students that way, as opposed to, as you said way earlier, giving them knowledge but leaving them with debt where they're really disempowered. With the Centenary partnership, what challenges are you anticipating? Because it's brand new and you haven't really tested it yet. So what are you seeing when you look around the corner?
So unique educational innovations acceptance in a higher ed community is the biggest challenge. I usually say this: we are in an AI generation, like AI era. Everything is changing every year, but our education system is the same, and everybody's afraid to try or before digesting, adapting, and learning, everybody criticizes, right? So any change is a challenging. So that's why rolling out as a pilot, and we're going to see the success. I always say, don't tell anybody your dream, show them. So, our dream is to have a centenary, the first university that pays students, and I am positive that in next 3 to 5 years, we will have a school campus where you go in and you say, I'm applying for admission, and you get an employment letter that welcome to our school. And after your first semester, you get this grade, this grade, this grade, you have a job in your field. So a lot of universities provide on-campus jobs. But if I'm learning IT and I get a job in a cafeteria or library, that's not a job. That's not a career. If I'm in IT, I should get a job in an IT industry. I'm in a construction. I don't want to work in a food truck if I'm a food court in a school if I'm in a construction program. So the philosophy is getting a job in the area of your study. So that's what our dream is. The challenges are there, getting a more employer network, because the social enterprise cannot, as we grow and say right now our student population is 400 to 500, kind of with all of our grant funded programs and all. And say we wanted to grow to 1,000 students, then our social enterprise cannot employ. So sharing this work-based learning concept, bringing employer on board, and making them believe that these are proficient employee, good employee, and you should try it. That's the we're navigating into that. But 8 years later, I have a lot more believers than when I started 8 years ago.
Well, you mentioned AI, so that's also a good segue maybe into the last part of the conversation. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing at IIT with artificial intelligence, and then we'll take it from there.
Sure. So when we got AI exploded, now almost a year, that everybody wanted to do the homework with AI. Everybody, my even 8th grader goes like, Papa, can I use ChatGPT to do this work? Right? So, but before I go into that, I wanted to share the biggest challenge, digital divide, I call it in America, right? So we have a whole segment of folks who don't have an internet access, who still don't know how to use an email or a social media. And we are promoting, and the federal government is spending a lot of money on a digital literacy. Compared to now, we are in an era that we have to take a class of an AI literacy, right? And cybersecurity to protect from those who don't know. Like giving an example on an AI, right now, AI has a capacity to call your family member with your phone number, with your voice, and asking for money. And I'm not just saying it's possible, it's happening now. And people not aware that this is AI. So having AI as an education part from early age is necessary, because it's like not going anywhere. Doesn't matter, people like it, people don't like it. You don't start learning, you're behind in years from where the rest of the world is going. So that's an important part. But then for a business community also, we know AI and we know some functionality, but how do I use it in my day-to-day life? So Ideal's working towards creating a small workshops and a training program. We did quite a few with the SBDC Center's partnership for any non-technical person. If they want to use AI in a day-to-day life, besides just the ChatGPT, now there are 300 different tools that you can use it every day to have a proficiency increase. So having a practical use of AI, education community can pay a big contribution in that space.
And what are some of the projects that you're working on with IIT students? For example, like the chatbots project.
Yeah. So it's interesting. We're launching May 30th. We're launching our first Veteran Resource Center. We created AI assistant, and AI's capacity is to process large data and respond it in a humanly possible conversation. So I give you example of a va.gov. That website has over 4 million pages with all the resources and laws and regulations and entitlement that veteran can have. But if I'm a veteran, how do I find? How do I find a resource? How do I connect? So now we train our artificial intelligence chatbot uh, just on a va.gov. And we have a web crawler that our student and instructor put together that crawls every weekend the site. So anything new comes out, the bot knows Monday morning. And now anybody have any questions, they can go in and ask the bot and get the response and connections immediately. We did that at a classroom 6 months ago, and that now led to start reaching out to veteran resource provider. So we're having them register to our veteran resource center's website, and they can put their information, what their intake process is, what service they provide, and where they're located in their contact details. So now you are a veteran, you go on our chatbot and you ask something, you get that person's contact if they are in your area, and they get your lead to provide a services. So now this concept can go into any organization. So we do that as a service to the small businesses. We did the church engagement bot. So we fed the Old Testament, New Testament, and a King James Bible, and we trained the chatbot. So now any questions that one can have and looking for an answer with the reference of a Bible, religious answer, then they can have that conversation. And we're utilizing this for a youth engagement for a church. So the bot can answer all those things, fun answer, but on the top of that, talk about the events, provide the information on a service schedule. Same way, we are in a conversation with nonprofits. We're creating a chatbot because they have a 20 plus different programs. Even their customer service rep cannot provide information on all programs. So it's an informational assistant 24/7. You don't have to match, and we can do the voice to text. So we can provide now this chatbot assistant over the phone also. So you can have a helpline calling, and you get a robot AI answer you. You can feel that you're not talking to a real person. That bot can train to be joke around with you, ask you for a weather. It's amazing.
Yeah. And what you described for the VA and for the church, all of those things are true for schools. Schools have hundreds or thousands of pages on their websites. They have student handbooks and faculty handbooks and just vast amounts of information. And if they could train a large language model like the ones that you and your students are making on their internal data, they'd probably make their own operations much smoother, and also potentially make some of their stakeholders like parents and alumni happier as well.
Yeah. So we're just in a process of introducing enrollment assistant. We're building it for Ideal, and I'll share how it works because admission counselor cannot offer detailed information if the school like us have IT and construction. One admission counselor, is very hard for them to learn everything about both programs. We're training our bot for enrollment as an enrollment specialist, AI enrollment specialist, will know everything about all the programs, schedules, timing. Click the button. So student says and they AI can have a conversation on a leading to what do you like, what are you thinking, screening, and then scheduling on my Calendly with my admission counselor's appointment. And along with that, also our schools, small schools, the way I started in one room, can utilize AI to create SOPs, standard operating procedure for every single department, and evaluation of their procedures being executed. So sky's the limit when it comes to AI. I get goosebumps that how many different ways we can make our life easy.
Yeah. Ren, I have loved this conversation. I want to suggest 3 takeaways for anybody who watches this video who's a school leader, whether they have a position of authority or they're just leading through their behaviors, when they think about how to create change, because you are a change leader, and you've already shared so much in this conversation. My 3 takeaways are, first, I'll quote you. If you want to lead change, don't tell anyone your dreams, show them. So build it. Second, related but distinct would be, for those people who are scared of building, scared of that innovative thing, start small. Start with one thing, build that one thing, test it out, see how it works. And then third, what you and Dr. Caldwell at Centenary have proven is that when you ground your work in mission and purpose, I'll reuse the phrase you just used about AI. When you ground your work in mission and purpose, the sky's the limit. Thank you so much, Ren. This was a great conversation, and I'm really excited to bring it to the rest of the Middle States universe.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Oh, our pleasure. Our pleasure. All right, that's it. I have another call that I have to jump to now, but Ren, I'm really grateful. I know I just said that, but I just want you to know how grateful I am to you for this.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, we'll talk soon.
All right, take care.
Okay, bye.